All right, we're going to be going through a little bit about Meraki. We're going to have some introductions to what's going on at Laurinburg and what they're doing, what Josh particularly is doing. Then we're going to break down the technology a little bit and how we use it and what people are, doing in the background, what Meraki is doing in the background, and particularly just why cloud managed IT has been so successful lately. We're going to be spending most of the time, though, talking about the actual use case of one of our customers here, the City of Laurinburg. We're going to demo using their dashboard, so you'll get to see not only what they're talking about and what they're saying they're doing, but we'll actually see the product live and how it operates in their network that's working right now. And then we'll recap real quickly, so when you do call in, you know what you're talking about, what product families you're looking at, and we'll have a little Q&A at the end. One thing to remember is that you look at a free AP for this. The eligibility details are at the bottom of the screen there, so if you want to check out that website and make sure you qualify, go ahead and do that. You get one of our MR18s. It's one of our nice enterprise-grade access points, and you get a 3-year license to go along with that. To get that, you do need to give us a call. You're going to get an email after this webinar kind of explaining what your next steps in the process is there. And as you do that, give the rep that's listed there, that'll be your Meraki account manager, give them a quick call, dial in, and they'll get your shipping address and then get that sent out for you. Alrighty, so I want to talk a little bit about Meraki before we jump into the specific use case here. So we are the cloud networking group of Cisco. We were an independent company around 4 years ago, and we were doing really well in the industry, and then Cisco ended up purchasing us, and since then we've actually expanded to a bunch of other cloud managed offerings. So now we offer the full networking stack, so you can manage all your switches, all your APs, all your security appliances in one dashboard. But now we've recently moved into phones and security cameras, and then we have a licensing only feature called Systems Manager that is actually for managing those endpoint client devices like iPads or cell phones. So we are the leader in cloud managed networking. We do have 6 product lines out there now, and with Cisco support, we fit right into the family very well. So if you do have an existing Cisco relationship or an existing Cisco network, our stuff will fit into that smoothly, as we work with all the other major vendors out there. So if you have a unique scenario, reach out to one of our salespeople, and they can kind of walk you through what that would look like and if Meraki is going to work for you or not. Before we jump into the story, I do want to explain a quick tidbit on the back end of Meraki. This is really important to us, mainly due to security, and we want to make sure that everyone feels very comfortable with our product and what being cloud managed really means. So if we check out the graph on the left there, the first thing I want to really point out is that user traffic does not go to the cloud. So if you're concerned at all about your data, just know that we use the similar architecture to an on-prem solution or any of the stuff that's been widely available in the industry. We pass all HIPAA security compliant regulations, we're PCI compliant, and then we meet all the Cisco standards for security also. We have third-party security audits, we have daily penetration testing. And so if you have any questions or concerns about security, please give us a call or check out our trust page. It's listed at the bottom, the meraki.cisco.com/trust. It walks through each of these very in-depth. It tells you exactly what's going on and about all the financial regulations or any of the other industries that have a lot of regulations out there, how we fit into those, and particularly where we don't. There are some things that come up time to time, and we will let you know very clearly up front if we meet whatever regulation you need to. Some of the other advantages of cloud management are that it's extremely scalable. It's a one-to-one relationship with our licensing and our device model. So if you purchase a device, you get a single license and a single AP. And as you move through and your network grows or your operation grows, you actually have one end contract date with us. So it's called co-termination with our licensing model. You don't have to have a bunch of different licenses. No matter what you buy, they always end on the same date. And then, of course, reliability is huge. Meraki has 4 nines of uptime. And so the idea of what happens when an internet outage occurs, I want to walk through it real quick. So there is no single point of failure with your Meraki hardware. If an access point goes out or a switch goes out or a router or firewall go out, those are simply a single device. They don't all your other devices. They are not in any way connected to make sure that they all work or they all don't work. It's just a single device goes out. It's next business day delivery for a warranty issue. You get sent that and you get set up. Now, if your ISP goes out, it's going to be just like any other outage with any other equipment. You're not going to have access to the internet. All your Meraki stuff is going to continue to operate internally. So if you have stuff that's within your building getting transferred through your switch, whatever it is, all of that will continue to work. If Meraki goes down, which once again, 4 nines of uptime, so very limited downtime with Meraki, your internet will continue to work, your devices will continue to work, but your data will not be uploaded until the internet connection or the Meraki connection comes back. So we cache that data, and then once your connection is restored, it gets uploaded and you can see what happened even during downtime, which is kind of nice. So that's the solution on the back end. One of the things that we really take pride in is all of our customers and how well they've treated us. And so if you check out some of the customers on here, it's across a bunch of different types of organizations out there, schools, public institutions, larger government entities, all those types of things. If you need a reference, let us know. If you want to talk to someone who does exactly what you do or who's in the same situation, we can certainly find that and set up a conference call with you and make sure you get a conversation from an actual user. And that's really what we're here today to do, is to talk to Josh Coble. He is, I'm going to let him give an intro about what he does there, because he does quite a few different things. And so, Josh, just wanted to check in, make sure we can hear you, and then if you could give a quick introduction and a little bit about your background.
Yes, sir. I am Josh Coble. I work for the City of Laurinburg as the system administrator. I am a one-man team. I support about 200 endpoints, more if you count laptops and basically BYOD. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and I've loved every minute of it. There's nothing I'd rather do than get up in the morning and solve other people's problems.
Awesome.
And Meraki certainly has made that easier.
Perfect. We'll jump into that in just a sec here. Thank you for that introduction. Could you tell us a little bit just about Laurinburg? It looks like it's got a pretty nice population out there in North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we're a small town. We were recently, as were a lot of southeast towns or central south towns affected by Hurricane Matthew, and our neighbors to the south of us in Robson County have been affected, but we're all rebuilding and power is being restored. I was born and raised here in Laurinburg, and I went off to college, and there's nothing I'd rather do than come back here and work for the town that I grew up in and was raised in. It's nice to see familiar faces here that I grew up with, and I enjoy supporting them.
That's awesome, and thank you for bringing up Hurricane Matthew. Obviously, some terrible stuff went on. It sounded like we had a little bit of a story of how Meraki helped out a little bit during that, because it sounded like you had some people from different departments calling in with problems.
Yeah, very much so. I'd love to share that. I was actually about an hour and a half away from Laurinburg when the storm got really bad. The news media kind of played it off like, it was going back out west. Well, it came back and basically kicked our butts. At that time, the city had lost power. One of our main feeds coming into the city, a piece of tin had come off an old car wash and actually lapped over the main transmission line, so that knocked out our whole city for literally 48 hours. During that time, I was slated to come home and make sure the generator stayed up here at Public Works so that we had constant power and everything was ship-shape. I put my stuff in the truck, got my wife in the car and said, let's go. I got about 6 miles up on I-95 and Highway Patrol stopped us and said, you can't go any further, that it was washed out. We turned back, so got back to our place, and immediately I was able to get on my phone using my cellular connection, log into my dashboard, and get the name. Because our primary ISP was down, I was able to get the IP address of our secondary ISP and reroute the VPN so that our electrical and water director could check on the status of the water director could check on the status of his pumps and well stations. and reroute water the way that needed to be, so that we could have fresh water, and our electrical director could start shutting down breakers and whatnot, and assess that situation. So Meraki was a real help in that situation.
Yeah, I love to hear it. And just an interesting comment here is that, you know, we booked all of this whole webinar with Josh before any of this happened. So it is interesting to hear. It's great to see that you guys are recovering so quickly. And of course, it's a great story for us to remember over here that, you know, there are real life consequences of when gear doesn't happen or doesn't work or whatever it is. And I'm glad to hear it worked out in the scenario. Let's jump into a little bit before Meraki, what you guys were using, how things were going, and let's just talk through kind of the changes that have happened there. So it sounds like before you kind of had a couple different vendors in play. Maybe can you tell us a little bit about your network and what you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, when I got here, I'll just give you a little bit of background on myself. I worked in a school district beforehand, and I didn't have a lot of network experience. I have a lot of, my background was basically server admin. So I needed a solution that was easy to use for one person. And when I got here, all of our SmartNet, we had all Cisco 2960 switches, all Catalyst. All of our SmartNet contracts were expired. So I come into a very fortunate situation where I was able to upgrade every single piece of equipment that I touched, because it was very much needed. It was let's see, I probably had maybe 15 Cisco switches scattered across the city, and two or three wireless access points. Wireless was not even thought of before I got here. I had to telnet into everything. Had to remember this password, that password. You know, constantly referencing my documentation. Documentation was also a thing that was not there when I got here. Again, Meraki also makes that easy with the topology map. I mean, I can't say enough about how Meraki has really simplified my situation.
Fantastic. So can we talk through one or two of those changes? So we'll demo the topology map differently, but the first thing I kind of wanted to go through, and we've got a quote down there about Meraki giving you some more flexibility. And so we do have a single interface. How has that changed how you manage things, having one interface to use across your whole network?
It has made it 1,000 times easier by leaps and bounds. I hate using that term, single pane of glass. I know that's a buzzword in the industry. I guess I hear it so much. But Meraki truly does that one interface very well. The fact that, you know, right here I can go to my dashboard and say, hey, I want to look at the status of an iPad that I have out there to one of the council members. I can drop down right here to Systems Manager, and boom, I've got all their apps they downloaded. If they've got the latest version of iOS, I mean, it in that respect, it has made it, like I said, 1,000 times easier in the fact that I don't have to inconvenience them to come to me to fix their issues. I can go to them and fix their issues.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that we do a lot with our networks is we really reach in and dig into, you know, data on the network. And you slightly mentioned be able to get info back from the network using MDM, but there's also a lot of other stats we look at. Can you maybe talk through some of the data you kind of pull from the network and how you do it with Meraki?
Yeah, well, let me clarify. Do you mean as far as from a documentation standpoint, or data as in just daily data being passed?
Yeah, the data, just the average stuff you're looking at maybe on a day-to-day basis, or stuff you're kind of checking into once a week.
Well, I'll occasionally pull a report of like file sharing, or I'll pull a report of what's been shared to a certain server, like our GIS server, for instance. It is a heavy hitter of data being uploaded and downloaded from it. And again, Meraki makes that really easy. I can go right here to my clients page, type in the host name of the server, and it shows me everything that has been uploaded and downloaded. Not more so in a granular fashion, but as far as a total, it shows me what's been uploaded and downloaded.
Awesome. So for everyone out there, just to kind of where I'm leading with my questions, some of the things we really focus on are the easy-to-use interface, which it sounds like we've heard some use cases for, and then we talk a lot about visibility into the network and how easy it is to get data and just the different things you do on a day-to-day and saving time. The last one that I wanted to ask you about, Josh, is troubleshooting, right? So we really do focus on making troubleshooting faster and easier and just overall a better experience for the user. Can you think of a scenario maybe that where troubleshooting was frustrating before, something you did regularly that you were troubleshooting that's been different with Meraki?
Yeah, definitely. With being a one-man department, I don't have a helper that I could say, okay, go to go down the hall and check that cable for me. I have to do it myself. So either I would have to physically, before Meraki, I would have to physically get up, and heaven forbid I get up from my office, but I would have to get up and, go through a cable tester on it and make sure that cable had continuity. Well, with Meraki, I can concentrate my efforts elsewhere and just run a cable test from the dashboard. It makes it really simple.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we'll have to show that one because it is a pretty intriguing process on how that works. Last question for you on this slide. I did want to talk through support. Now, have you had any, we didn't ask this beforehand, so I apologize for that, but have you engaged with our support team here at Meraki yet?
Oh, man, I cannot speak enough about the 100% support that I've got from the Meraki engineers.
Okay, did you call in or email in, or how did you do it?
Well, I've actually done both. I prefer calling in simply because I like to have that instantaneous feedback. I mean, who doesn't? And that's not to say email is not instantaneous. It's better to hear someone's voice, I think, in a lot of situations.
Yeah, and we recommend that also. If you need a faster answer, someone to kind of talk to you live, we always recommend calling. I think our average support time or average hold time to get a support rep is under 2 minutes these days. So we try to make that experience very quick and painless. I was hoping you could kind of maybe walk through what your issue was and how support treated you and maybe the time to resolution on that one.
Well, I can actually pull up my support cases that I've got and just kind of pull one up at random.
Okay.
And Meraki actually makes that really easy. And you log every single case that you call in with, and you can go back and reference it just as documentation. I know, let's see, just for instance, on October 29th, I had an issue with a switch encountering PoE issues. It wouldn't provide power, and it turned out to be the switch. So they were able to, they realized by doing troubleshooting on their end, as well as the troubleshooting I did on my end, that one port had an issue with PoE. So immediately they did an RMA and they resent me a switch, and it was here within 24 hours. 24 to 48 hours, it was here. And I was able to claim it to my dashboard and add it even before it physically got here. So once I unboxed it, threw power to it, given an active internet connection, it picked up all its settings like nothing really happened.
Yeah, that's great. And, obviously we're not perfect. Some hardware is destined to fail at times. So, sorry that it failed on you, but I'm glad to hear the resolution was simple and easy. Let's walk through some of the stuff you're using real quick. So one of the things we wanted to talk through is the different access points, and you've got a few of the access points. And for everyone out there looking at the screen, the access points with Meraki are the MR line, So we do MR for access points, MS for switches, and MX for security. And so that's what those numbers that you're looking at for. It looks like you guys actually did a trial first and then ended up moving forward with that gear. Can you kind of talk me through what that experience was like for you?
The trial, I basically first did my research based on my experience with my previous employer and just what a troublesome experience we had with networking. I mean, I looked at several other vendors, and Meraki really stuck with me. I just knew that I needed to do a trial with these guys and get it in here quick. So, and that they did. They certainly delivered. And so I racked it. Easy to use direction. Easy, you know, for somebody who has never done this before, the directions were so simple. I was able to rack it and plug in my cables, and traffic started flowing. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, my assigned sales rep was constantly checking in on me and seeing how things were, and then I contacted her and finally made the decision to pull the trigger, and the rest is history.
And to add a bit for everybody out there with the trial system, so, we are very upfront with our gear. You get free access points. There's actually other webinars that can provide other free gear also. And so if that isn't enough, we actually have a very full-fledged trial system. We ship the gear out to you. If you like it, you can keep that gear and purchase it from your reseller. If you don't like it, you send it back and the shipping's on us. So that's what Josh did here, and eventually ended up keeping the gear and kind of moving forward with some other stuff also. One thing I did want to talk to you, Josh, about, it looks like you've got some interesting stuff going on with your Wi-Fi and the public access and the splash page, and kind of what you're doing with how many clients connect and what you're blocking on that.
Sure. So I've got it VLAN'd out to where my public can connect to a COL public page. And Meraki makes it easy to do just that. And it presents them with a splash page, basically just a TNC of, basic use. Of course, filtering is also taken care of on the MX side, on the firewall side, content filtering and whatnot, so they don't go to sites they're not supposed to. And it is completely separate, completely VLAN'd away from my data network within the city that we, operate on a day-to-day basis. So none of that traffic talks, sees, or speaks to one another. Meraki makes it really easy to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we'll have to check that out on the demo and kind of show exactly how that looks on the dashboard. Let's talk a bit about Systems Manager. So just a reminder for everything out there, Systems Manager is our client-facing product. It's used on your devices. You download an application called Meraki Systems Manager, and you put it on your iPads, or you put it on your cell phones or your computers, and it allows you to secure and control those endpoints. Josh, if you kind of want to talk through us what you're doing with Systems Manager.
Sure. It started with, you guys had the Systems Manager product available, and I thought, what better way to be able to connect to my police officer laptops in the car than with Systems Manager. As before, again, I said I would almost have to inconvenience that person to go to them. There was no outside, like out-of-band management kind of thing where I could easily access their laptop or their mobile device. I would have to go to them or they come to me. That means I would have to stop that officer, have him stop his patrol route, whatever he was doing at the time, and bring him into my office, or I come to him. Well, with Systems Manager, I can actually remote into his, as long as he has an active internet connection, I can remote into his laptop and diagnose his issues and do whatever he or she needs me to do.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I do have a question from the audience I wanted to run by you here. I don't know if I warned you that we'd be asking you these live, but we're getting asked about if you could speak about CJIS network requirements and kind of how that's affected you and what you had to do to be in compliance there.
Well, from the information that I got from the CGI, one of the CJIS coordinators here with the state, Meraki is definitely a solution that falls within those rule sets or boundaries. Now, as far as talking more about it, that's kind of outside of the scope of what I know. I just know that Meraki definitely qualifies itself working within the scope of the CJIS rules.
Definitely, yeah. And sorry for the tough question there. So for anyone else on the line, obviously, you know, it's not all going to be in the state. There's going to be different rules and regulations everywhere, and we do have a couple of ways to kind of assist with that, right? So sometimes if there are bigger rules that are across multiple states or across the whole U.S. or a certain country that you might particularly based out of, we might know the answer right away. If we don't, we usually can reach out and check internally if anyone internally does. And then lastly, where we can go is we could rely on our partner resellers. So Meraki and Cisco, we don't sell anything direct. We sell all through our partners. And what they do a lot of times is they're very in tune with the local environment, what the rules are. And so if you have any questions, you know, let us know. We can make sure we get the right resource in front of you to kind of walk through those network requirements and make sure that Meraki will fit in. And once again, we're very straightforward. If we don't fit in, the last thing we want to do is cause a compliance issue. So thanks for that question. Let's move on to the other parts of the network, right? So we've deployed some MS220 switches out there. Looks like you've got a core switch. And do you just kind of want to talk to us a little bit about your switching network and what you're doing with us?
Yeah, sure. So all of my switches come back to the core switch, and it really does my heavy lifting and computing for my network. Each site has its own switch, whether it be well, I've got some 24 ports, I've got 48 ports, and I've got a couple of 8 ports in my network. They are all connected via fiber. We have a gig backbone throughout the city through each building.
Great. Yeah, so a standard deployment of switches, kind of distributed locations, different closets, different things, all connecting back. And we'll see on the topology view how those all look on Josh's network in just a couple minutes here. The last thing I did want to talk about is security plans a little bit. We haven't talked through much about security. I imagine it's you know, top of mind for most businesses out there, and certainly most government entities. What's the environment like with you guys, and kind of what are some of the challenges you face when you think about security in the digital space?
Well, nowadays, you know, you see municipalities and hospitals and big organizations getting hit with, you know, the CryptoLocker viruses and whatnot. Well, Meraki, and you may speak on this, but Meraki launched their AMP service, and forgive me that the acronym fails me.
Yeah, it's anti-malware protection.
That's it. Thank you, anti-malware protection. I don't know what it is, but I know it works really well. Yeah, that's actually kind of the answer we love to hear. It's funny. So just to give a quick explanation to add a little more there, we've got all these services that run in the background of our security. SourceFire is one of them. AMP is one of them. They're these Cisco products that are really built out. They can be purchased separately from Cisco. They're really in-depth, and you can do a ton of stuff with them. Meraki's kind of dialed them down where you turn them on or turn them off. And so that's exactly the response we're looking for. I don't really know what it does or how it does it, but I can turn it on and it's easy. So thanks for pitching that for us. Yes, sir.
It sounded like you had a little more to add, though, before I cut you off there. Sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to kind of reiterate on that point that it does its job, and it does it very well. It blocks. I can go to a computer and see what traffic's trying to come into it, what traffic's leaving it, and AMP does its job very well. It stops threats where they need to be stopped.
Awesome. It's exactly what we want to do. So we did talk a little bit about troubleshooting, and we're actually probably going to walk through a bit of the troubleshooting story, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide. I think, you know, what I'm going to do is kind of move into the future of what you're looking for, right? So you guys, as most departments do, you've got something that's coming up next. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at, well, I'm currently demoing, as you can see here on the slide, I'm demoing the MC phone. I've got it right here on my desk. It's a solid product. I'm still waiting on a couple features to come out, but as Meraki progresses and they launch these features out monthly, the MC phone is a solid choice. We're also looking at building Wi-Fi out, looking at building out to downtown for our merchants and our citizens. And we're looking at utilizing some MR72s to do that.
Nice. And then it seems like some of the guys on Main Street are getting a little extra attention with some gear too.
That's right. Yeah, we're looking at, again, with deploying out the Wi-Fi on Main Street. We also want to put fiber in each business and throw an MC64 at, an MX64 at them. To provide them with internet.
Now, are you going to manage all those, or are they going to have independent access?
I will manage all those, and Meraki makes it easy to do.
Great. It sounds like you've got some cool stuff going on there. Hopefully, one day we'll all get to visit and see how it's working for you. Let's jump over to the demo here. I'm going to actually share a different program. Give me just a sec to get this going. All right, you should be seeing my Google Chrome screen. We are actually logged in to the City of Laurinburg's dashboard right now. So this is live. This is what everybody is on right now. I want to walk through just a couple things that Josh and I talked about, but at first I want to explain the overview of the dashboard in case you guys have never seen it. So we do try to make it easy. We have everything broken down into different categories, as you can see on the left. So your different appliances, they have all their settings and all their visibility stuff. Once you jump into a single type of appliance, on the left is always going to be your monitor, which is the visibility we've been talking about, how you dig into a port in a switch or how you dig into a single client device. And on the right, it's always going to be how you configure things if you want to go change some settings and, start doing different stuff with your products. And then as we go through, we've also got organization stuff, which is like where all your license stuff comes into play and your inventory and just the different things that you might look for, all the reports that we've mentioned. And then up top is just network-wide. So all of the things like topology and the total client view. The first thing that I really want to talk through real quick is visibility. And, we kind of mentioned it a little bit, jumping into a single officer's iPad, I believe it was, and changing some things there. But I want to show kind of what that would look like. So on the clients page here, we're looking at the last day right now, but I'm going to actually move over to the last week. And then it looks like you guys had a massive data spike, something you guys did there went a little crazy. Normally you'd be able to see the ebbs and flows of data, but it definitely jumped quite a bit on that one day. Going from that though, this is a completely searchable list of clients here. So we can see whatever you've tagged things as. If you wanted to look up someone's particular iPad, we can find Josh's iPad right here, and then we could jump into this single client device and see exactly what he's been doing. And if we wanted to jump into a computer, I don't know exactly how you've tagged all of these, but let's search for some different types of computers. We've got some Windows computers out there. Things are servers. We're just going to jump into one of these here. I'll choose this guy. And that looks like not a ton of data here, but as we click into the applications, you can see exactly what this user is doing. So you can see this person spent quite a bit of time on Facebook, it looks like, so Josh may want to go have a chat with them if Facebook's an issue. But once you go from there, you can see that it's easy to jump into a single user, but if you don't want to look at a single user, you can look at applications across the whole network here. So we can see exactly what applications are being used by the City of Laurinburg, how much they've been using them. And you'll notice sometimes things are grayed out. That's because I'm not an admin on Josh's network. So When you are an admin, you'll have visibility into everything. I only have visibility into certain stuff, the permissions that he's allowed Meraki to see. Going from there, though, if we wanted to check on who's using these certain applications, we could. Like Facebook, for example, you can see, as it loads here, an exact list of people who've been using that. Or if you wanted to look at something like Dropbox and see who's been using Dropbox, who's been utilizing different applications, you can see all the users of Dropbox and what exactly they're doing. And you'll actually even notice some of the Meraki devices are ending up on here for when data gets transferred through them. It's kind of interesting. Josh, any use cases you point out about kind of the client's page or the application stuff, or maybe even group policies that you've used kind of live with your network?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think I have created any group policies, but I do use my client's page on a daily basis.
Gotcha. And what are you doing with the client's page there?
Well, the first thing I'll do, is I want to see if a client's online. So just like you did, Dustin, I'll go right there to search clients, and I'll start typing in the IP address or the MAC address or the host name.
Perfect. And then you can just kind of see what they're doing, if they've showed up, if they're, working or not right now. That's an interesting case about group policies. So it sounds like you guys don't have a ton of really micro-level controls about what people, what internal users can access. But it did sound like at the Wi-Fi as a whole, on the guest splash page, you have some policies set up to avoid certain types of access. It looked like peer-to-peer trafficking was an issue. Is that right with you guys?
That's correct.
Okay. And did you guys, let's see where we've got those set up at. I might not even be on the right network. Sometimes we have to, the way people set it up, we don't get to study these things too far in advance. So those would be set up if you were setting up, controls with Meraki. I want to walk through that scenario real quick. Basically, we have a couple different layers at where you can set up what we call layer 7 traffic shaping or layer 7 firewalling. And the idea there is that we're looking down at the application level of what the person's actually doing. So it's not about, codes and port numbers and IP addresses and all that. It's more about what an application is. And if we were to go build one of these, for example, if I go into firewall and traffic shaping and then I am going to shape traffic on this SSID, I would create a new rule here, and I can add things like peer-to-peer traffic, for example. So if I wanted all peer-to-peer traffic to be affected, that way no one's torrenting illegal movies or, any sort of BitTorrent stuff or sharing files on our bandwidth, I can do that. Now we have two different types. We have layer 7 firewalls, which block it entirely, right? We can choose peer-to-peer traffic, we can choose certain sites, or we can do all types of that traffic. Or down here, we can shape it individually. And so Josh's use case, it sounds like they're just blocking certain things, they're not using a ton of traffic shaping, and that's what we see out there. So you can do all that at the security appliance level, which will affect everything in the network. It'll affect all the wired traffic and all the wireless traffic once it hits the security appliance. You can do it at the wireless level under firewall and traffic shaping, so right when it tries to hit your wireless, it gets affected. Or you can do it in network-wide up here at the group policy level, which affects single clients. So if he wanted to affect just certain clients who maybe were bandwidth abusers or whatever, he could set up a group policy that would only affect their end user devices. So that's kind of some of the visibility and the control we give you. One other thing you mentioned, Josh, was topology that I wanted to open up and show off real quick. So we're going to jump into Josh's topology page, and what you've got here, this is a virtual map of your physical network. And so I'm going to give a quick description, then I'm just going to let Josh walk through it a little bit. So on the left here, this square is that MX100 router that they're using. And then as we head to the right are the different switches that they've got out there. And then these circles are their different access points. And then, of course, that Meraki phone that he mentioned that he's demoing, there's that Meraki phone right on the network right there. One other thing that's cool about our topology page is that it actually shows products that aren't Meraki or that aren't part of this network. So sometimes you'll be using a mixed bag of gear. Those will show up here so you can see this is a non-Meraki product. Whatever we can read off that product, this does look like it's a switch probably is what I would guess. Whatever we can read, we'll display here so it shows up on your map. And then sometimes what you also get is a device that is either set up on a different network or Meraki's just not familiar with, we'll put those in there too, because we know there's something plugged in there. We might just not know what it is, but we don't want your network looking all confusing and disjointed, so we'll put a little moniker in there so you know what's going on. Josh, any comments you want to make about the topology page or kind of how you built your network here?
Well, I did not design the network. It was designed before me. The only thing I would comment on it is, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself in the fact that it is super easy to use. I mean, there's no downloaded Visio templates or anything that would overcomplicate the map. It basically just simply is what it is, and has its function.
Gotcha. So one of the things I like about the topology view that I did want to ask you about is if you could help me walk through a troubleshooting story, right? So one of the common stories that we see across the industry is someone calls in and says, I have slow Wi-Fi. What would your first steps be? Would you look into kind of the use case of what they're doing on the device and maybe analyze the device first before you moved into the network here?
And I'm sorry, Justin, you kind of dropped out there. You said user calls and has slow what?
Yeah, they have slow Wi-Fi on the device. Sorry for dropping out. So maybe they have a laptop and they're saying, hey, Josh, my device has slow Wi-Fi right now, and we're trying to talk through the troubleshooting case of what you would do. So typically we see a lot of IT people, they would start at the device itself or the user and make sure, you know, the user's doing everything properly, then make sure the device is working and there's no malware and those types of things. Does that sound familiar?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's an everyday use case there. You know, first of all, I would have the user restart their device, and if the issue still persists, I would go to the wireless page and I would find, number one, I would find where is the customer located, where is the end user located rather, what access point are they on, and I could simply I could really answer my own question by getting their host name or their IP address and putting it in my client's page, and it tells me exactly what access point they were last connected to.
Okay, so we've found that we've used a couple of the different features. I'm just going to point those out real quick. We do have a map and a floor plan, so when you go in and you select that user like we saw earlier, they'll show up actually where they're at on your map and on your floor plan and kind of give you an idea where that is. And then if you wanted to click on that specific user, you can actually link into this topology page here directly from the user client page, and it'll show you exactly where the data's at and where the data's coming through, and it'll tell you exactly what access point they're accessing. So, Josh, you know, we're not going to be looking at a real user right now, but let's just say they were on this training access point. So you were saying the next thing you would do is kind of start looking into the access point itself. So I'm going to pull up the access point page. And then what are the couple things you might walk through on the access point page here?
Well, I would first look at their signal strength, and then look at, you know, sometimes I have an issue with authentication.
Okay.
The issue isn't necessarily slow internet. The issue sometimes it's more the issue of authentication, deauthentication with my Radius server.
Gotcha.
So then I would go into the logs and look and see if the Radius, and the logs would be found under event log, and it would actually show you, you know, J Doe logged in at 10:54 a.m. and then it immediately disassociated. Normally that is indicative of, hey, I'm far away from the access point and I can't get a good signal to authenticate.
Gotcha. So those are just some of the kind of use cases, and obviously we make all the tools available. There are these things, live tools here, where if you want to do different things and troubleshoot, and we talked about the event log here a little bit, and then there's the overall event log across the whole network. So the idea with troubleshooting with Meraki is it's the same stuff, the standard procedure, but it's just a little bit easier to access with us and find the data. So the next case we might step into, and you'd mentioned this a little bit, is troubleshooting a switch, and particularly if you needed to do a cable test. I am actually going to jump into a switch here and show what that looks like. So here we are on the switch ports page, and Josh, do you have a scenario that came to mind where you had to troubleshoot a particular port or anything that we can talk through?
Well, actually this morning, and actually, Dustin, if you would, sir, go to my switches and select COL test SW.
Okay, let's see. Do you say COL test SW? There we go.
That's correct. And that is actually the switch sitting here on my desk. I had an access point at the South Fire Station. That AP was COL SFS TC, I believe.
Okay.
It was plugged into port 3 of the South Fire Station switch. Well, everything was working on that switch except my access point. Well, I switched ports, it didn't work. I switched another port, it didn't work. I brought it back to my office, and here's, I still have to make a call into Cisco support or Meraki support because it kind of has my head scratching. But I brought the access point back to my office, and I plugged it into port 1, which is that port right there, and it is now working with no issues.
Gotcha.
So now I have to go back and look and see with Meraki support, hey, maybe there is an issue with this switch that I don't see.
Yep, so you give our guys a call, they'll kind of ask you what you did, walk through the scenario, and see if there's anything they can help you out with. That's great. So one thing we talked about too is that, the troubleshooting on the switch if you were going to run some of the tests. So here's that cable test option if you wanted to run a cable test on this particular port, or if you wanted to run a packet capture, or if you wanted to turn it on and turn it off again, just some of the different troubleshooting steps. So overall, what I think I'm trying to show here is that the stuff you're doing with troubleshooting is probably sounding pretty familiar, and in real life scenarios though, that's the one advantage of the Meraki platform is it's just all in front of you. And obviously there's still cases where you physically have to get out there, and we just heard from Josh that he had to go to the switch and test it out and physically change it over to another switch. A lot of the stuff is available right here. Any thoughts, kind of like last minute thoughts here, Josh, that you've had about our troubleshooting that you want to share, how your experience has been?
Well, and again, I can't really reiterate it enough that Meraki is a really good solution for your small branch teams, your one-man shows, your 2-3-man department, men and women department that don't have a lot of overhead and workforce to go out there and get hands-on and troubleshoot. It makes my job a whole lot easier where I have 12 tickets a day come into my help desk. I can sit here and jam out tickets, and then on my other laptop over here beside me, I can run a cable test, or I can diagnose a Wi-Fi issue while simultaneously diagnosing an email issue unrelated to Meraki. I mean, it just really, Meraki really works for me in that sense.
And I feel busy in my job, and here you are working at 2 laptops at once, so definitely can feel for you there. So before we finish up on the demo here, Josh, I kind of wanted to give you a chance. Is there anything cool on the dashboard that you want everyone to see that you wish you had seen in advance or anything?
I really like the graphical interface. Well, I like all the graphical interface of Meraki, but the reporting, yeah, there you go, summary, thank you, summary report. And it just shows kind of an overview of a flow of data, what it's done for the week, the month, so on and so forth. Port utilization, it shows PoE usage. I mean, this right here is your end-all be-all of information on your network.
Gotcha. That's a great thing to call out. And, we're looking at the last day right now. I did want to show a little bit here. So you can choose by the network that you've set up, and then you can choose what type of devices you want included in there. And so if we switch to wireless, for example, and then maybe we're only going to look at the public stuff, we'll update that and choose over the last week. It'll basically just run in the background here and then produce the same type of data, but just for the specific stuff you're looking at. So Josh has his stuff organized very well with tags and things, making it really easy to drill down. So you do have to set all that stuff up yourself, but once you do, you know, there's a plethora of information available. And one thing I will add there is that graphical interface kind of contributes across all of our products. So I'm going to actually pull up the Security Center here. Same idea. We see how many incoming threats we had. And then as we click into these, it's going to scroll down over time. So now instead of looking at a month view, we're looking at a single day. And then I'm going to go into this single 2-hour period here. And then if I want to break it down, you know, we can go down into there's these 15 units right here and see the clients and see all the events and different things that happen. So that is one of the ideas that we've really tried to put out there, is that, you know, the dashboard should be beautiful also, and it should be entertaining and not just like this ugly, old, clunky looking thing. So thanks for pointing that out, Josh. We are going to move back and just finish up the slides here, and then I think we might have a couple quick questions. I'm going to see if I can get a couple written on the board here so I can ask you for them here. Let me jump back into PowerPoint. All right. You guys should be seeing, sorry, clicked the wrong button there. You should be seeing my PowerPoint again. And a quick reminder on our product families. So we do have 6 different product families. We heard about quite a few that Josh is using. Security cameras are brand new. They actually just started shipping yesterday. So if you need any info on those, feel free to reach out. And one thing to remember too is there's a separate webinar on each of these. This has just been a quick overview, but if you want to talk to a product manager, someone who's really technical about these different things and what we do, we have separate webinars on each of those that explain them extremely well. And so for the users on the phone, let's discuss what your next steps are to get that free AP. So the first thing is contact your Meraki rep, make sure you're qualified, give them a call, they'll double check your qualification, get your shipping address, and get you set up there. If you want to check out more about what we do, or maybe you're even a current Meraki customer, I would heavily recommend signing up for our blog. Our team does a great job creating consumable content. They usually only take 2 to 3 minutes to read. They tell you what the feature is, what it does, and they tell you how to enable it on your dashboard. So it's not just for new customers who are thinking about buying stuff. It's actually mainly for current customers who have gear that got new features enabled, because we do roll out about a new feature per month per product line. So there's quite a few new features that come out throughout the year that you may want to go enable on your own dashboard. And then lastly, we talked about the trial system. Josh has used the trial system himself, and it's a easy to use system. If you need more proof, let us know and we can get you set up with the trial, and then we can go from there. I've got some questions being put up on the board here. So I'm going to actually, Josh, give you an answer, a chance to answer first before, and if I need to add some color to it or explain the system, maybe it's some of the things you dealt with. But the first one is they're talking about firmware updates. Have you had to deal with any firmware updates yet?
Not at all, other than the fact that I need to click the button that say, yes, do my firmware update.
Okay, so they're available. You just haven't done any of the updates, right?
Well, no, I take that back. I should say I was speaking more along the lines of how easy it is to do the firmware updates.
Yeah, and we do work on that. And I was just wondering, you know, if you'd ran any live yet, if you had any issues with it or anything.
None. I have had absolutely no issues. Knock on something, but you know, and again, I don't sign up for the beta firmware update.
Okay.
But no firmware issues to date. I haven't had any issues with the Meraki firmware that I've pushed thus far, and that goes across all of my network. That's for my MX device. That's for all my MS switches. That's, you know, for the wireless line. I've had no issues with firmware updates, and I don't have to upload anything. I mean, Meraki makes it simple. That's probably the biggest takeaway from this webinar that you'll get today is Meraki makes your job simple. I think I've got my firmware update set for like 2 a.m.
Yep. That's great to hear. On my personal home network, I get an email every once in a while that says you have a network scheduled at 4 a.m. on, 3 Tuesdays from now. And so just to add a little color to our system, you can certainly schedule them in advance. You'll get a notification. You can schedule them to automatically run at a certain time. You can do them on the fly. Whatever works for you guys, we're very flexible with how firmware gets pushed. Our next question is asking, are the configs backed up? So the short answer is yes. I assume we're talking about general things like ports and switches and just how your configs are. Is like, if my product gets destroyed, do I have to start over? Well, all that stuff is actually saved on the cloud, so you would not have to start over. And then the use case that Josh spoke about earlier particularly was when he had a switch go down. He did an RMA, got a new switch within 48 hours, and then he was able to clone that switch and just plug everything back in, and all the settings were right there, right? So the idea is, yeah, they are backed up in the cloud, and if you have any issues or if you want to talk through that process, we certainly can. Josh, we have a question you might be able to answer here. Is they're asking, can you touch on the radius use with the APs for connecting laptops to secure Wi-Fi? Are you using anything like that type of setup?
Oh, most definitely. I'm using it every day. Meraki has their own radius type interface or setup that you can utilize if you do not have the luxury of having or setting up a radius server on-prem, but I chose to do the on-prem radius server, and that's just a feature of Windows Server that you can basically spin up, and it integrates with Meraki flawlessly. You put in you set up the server, you set up all your APs and your client, your host inside that server. You go back over to your Meraki dashboard page. You add the radius server. You basically put in the IP address of the server. It pulls those clients, and then, from that point on, you can start authenticating with your Active Directory username and password.
Awesome, thank you. And we are getting short on time. I do want to run through these last couple questions. So Josh, quick question for you here that some of these people are interested in is, how many servers and how many clients do you support?
I've got roughly 18 servers, and I've got right at 200, 220 end users.
Perfect. Very busy gentleman. I'm going to answer two more questions. First one is, how do I find my Meraki rep? Basically, you're going to get an email after this, and it's going to have the info to reach out to someone at Meraki, and that person can qualify your AP and then get you set up with the right contacts and make sure you're comfortable with what to do next. And then there's a use case question about, well, what do we need to do to get topology? So we saw that topology view. I did want to answer that real quick. So that is generated by the Meraki switching network. If you don't have topology, it's probably because you don't have switches on your network. If you do have switches on your network and don't have topology, I don't actually think there's a way to turn it off without specially requesting that. But if you have switches and you don't have a topology view, give our support a call and we'll get that one figured out, because you should have it. So those are most of the questions. Hopefully everything got answered, and hopefully all the stuff in the chat box got answered, but you can reach out and get a more in-depth answer if needed. I just want to say a big thanks to Josh. Thank you so much. I'm glad everything's going well after that hurricane came through. And thank you so much for your time, Josh. Really appreciated having you today.
Thank you, sir. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.